Yes.
Well, you know, I was in a very, very nice Jasmine Executive Suites, which is a new hotel, and it's not even finished yet. So it seemed like it was a good neighborhood. So I was at 2:50 in the morning. I was out with my digital video and videotaping stuff, and I caught 3 guys doing an illegal deal, something illegal, and they came after me from my camp. And I stopped and talked to the girl who was flirting, and we talked together for about 5 minutes. So as I left that area, they were waiting between cars. And they had a guy, you know, getting my attention so I would notice it. So they jumped out with a crowbar, hit me here, busted the lip completely open, so it was all the way through. Took this part of these 3 teeth, you can see they're too high right now. Crushed the bone all the way back under my tongue. Those 3 teeth sat under my tongue. Had us forward and whacked me in the eye here and split this eye all the way open here. It was just a week ago, so you can see how I healed. This whole lip and whole mouth is
For a week, you look great.
That's right, a week ago today. Yeah, and you know, after I was hit with a crowbar, well, the board was first and the crowbar next. And they were out to get that pay. They didn't want anybody having that tape. Obviously, they were going to jail for it or something. So they were out to kill me. They needed to do that camera. So when I got hit, this came, and in that split second when my head's going back, it only seemed like I had 5 minutes to think in that split second. And I realized that my teeth had been caved back, and my jawbone had been gone. I had to go with it. And I'm falling backwards. And I realized that I had to spin and get away from those 2 guys because they kept crushing my face. So as I turned around, I got a crowbar across the shoulder. Didn't break the bone, but I got a huge, welt, abrasion there. And then as they're going down, they were Thai kickboxers, obviously, because they kicked my legs. I mean, I got bruises and open black and blue here. Tremendous sensitivity and pain, hardened area here. And when I hit the ground, I just started kicking. I kicked some kneecaps. And that gave me enough time to get out and through when I ran into a restaurant.
Did they get the camera?
No. I had it tied to my hand.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, wow.
And so do you have pictures of them on the camera?
It didn't come out, it was too dark. So they didn't know that and I didn't know. Because I went to the police to show it to them and it was too dark. Yes, I did take a local anesthetic to get the jawbone back because they said, what they wanted to do, they just wanted to pull the 2 teeth and just leave the jawbone crushed. I said, no. They said, well, the nerves to those teeth that are completely, bruised and ruptured, there's no way they're going to recover. And I said, that's your opinion. Let's go ahead and try to put it back and see what happens. If it goes into necrosis, I'll have them removed in 6 to 10 weeks. But for right now, we're going to put it back in place. So I went into surgery for 2 hours, and I let them shoot me up with Novocaine 3 times, 3 spots. And even with that little Novocaine, it was excruciating. Because it was unusual. Now, I don't know if the mandible plate here, the holes of the teeth, is normally soft. But there was no break in the bone. It moved like a baby's, stretched in, but still pulling it back for 2 hours to pull it back into place and hold it while it fired. So it was pretty painful, even then.
Don't go out and do your nice picture.
Not like that.
Should never associate going there.
But you didn't see them. You didn't even notice them. You were.
Oh Yeah, I was filming and I saw these three guys doing their thing and I started filming them. And when they saw me filming them, they got very upset. You know, and one of them came after me with a bottle and the other one stopped him. And obviously they were planning from that moment to get the camera away.
And you realized that they would be coming after you?
No, had no shit. If I'd known that, I'd gone right into a restaurant immediately. Called the police.
But when you were videoing them, you saw the guy turn around and have a box?
No. They were there doing their thing, and I'm videotaping it. They're in a dark area. And they started, yelling at me, and, covering their faces and yelling. So I just continued videotaping other people, And one of the guys, as I was, looking at him, as he was yelling and going like this, I was still videotaping. Digital, very small Canon, very expensive camera, videotaping them. He came after me, with a bottle, and started coming after me to stop him almost immediately. Didn't get within probably 15 feet of me. So,
You just figured it was over?
yeah, I figured it was over.
What were you videotaping?
No, I was just getting someone's bag cut.
So I mean, that's more as far as the pain that you've been in since then.
Well, it's funny, I felt my teeth under my tongue, way back at the palate. I could hear where the tongue meets. And I could feel the teeth back there, and I could have had no bite. It would have ripped the teeth apart. This mandible would have been torn upward and stretched upward and just crushed inward. But I had no pain. No pain. I mean, I felt a heaviness and a tinge of discomfort. There was no pain until I went into surgery. Then there was pain.
Right.
Then there was
You
pain.
didn't feel like you were being knocked out, or you didn't feel like
Well, this, it hurt for, I would say, maybe a few minutes after I got hit. Then I felt some pain, and then it went away within a couple of minutes.
because of the diet?
And I had no idea I had been, hit with a crowbar on the back. And had all the bruises on my leg until several days later. Then those got very sore and started bruising.
I hope they found them.
Oh my God.
What about the pain since then as far as your job?
Only when I see the teeth, the wiring is, the whole thing moves, so it doesn't stay permanent. So these teeth will start rising up again. So I have to take them, pull them, force them back down to hold them in place. And that's painful. And the pain lasts maybe half an hour when I do it. But I can use the pain for it. Basically, I have very little pain, except when I go to the pain.
You think the
It's
doctors
another
there?
4 weeks. You have it on the brace.
I have it on for 5 weeks altogether, 4 more weeks.
I think the doctors there were very competent, like you.
Extremely. And you know what it cost me for that 2-hour dental bone surgery? $125. Here would have cost me $30,000 to $50,000.
Wow.
$125.
No one should have it.
Well, isn't it subsidized by the state?
No, you pay for it.
So what did you think for the first day?
Well, I had a Thai girlfriend, several of them. So one would take care of me in the day, one would take care of me at night, and all this. They would chop my meat up very finely and mix it with eggs, so it would just, slide down. Basically, that's what they had. And then I have several patients who live in Bangkok, and they get raw goat's milk for me, and I get lots of coconut cream. They have all these little shops around there that take the coconut, they have grain the milk out and they cut them in two, and they have this grinder, and they grind the meat down into a grating, and then they have these presses, and it's called routine. And, you know, we pay a fortune. I paid, you know, something like 50 cents for 2 kilos of this coconut cream. So I had everything I needed, and the eggs and the meat that would come in from the, you know, outside of the farmland, the freshly butchered meat every day, grazed meat, buy it. I get a kilo for something like $2.50. $4, $5 for 2.5 pounds.
Do you chew now?
No.
So what do you still eat the same?
Ground meat with eggs. Okay, now we're going to get into the, any more questions about that? I got this all coated with beeswax. You just ripped my lip apart. It was already open and sore and cut them out.
Did you give up on Thailand?
Oh no.
You don't want to come
Not like that. Here, I haven't paid. Not at all. I wasn't even frightened. I had adrenaline rush, but I wasn't frightened.
He went to crowbar and that's a heavy duty.
Well, it was either crowbar or a hammer. I don't know which it was. Well, it didn't. And, you know, I don't think that could have happened.
Yeah,
I just remember it would happen.
Yeah.
Well, you feel amazing when you
Oh, incredibly. I mean, when I went in there, you know, I had to take the stitches out of here because this was so wide open and so ripped open and give me a board. That, you know, I let them go ahead and put some stitches there just to hold it together so my cuts were falling down. The membrane was falling out. And here's the same thing. I mean, they hit me so hard to push the bone back that they had opened a huge hole and a gash all the way through my lip. So I let them sew. I didn't let them sew the inside, but I let them sew the outside. Oh yeah, definitely. So I had to take stitches out here after 2 days, and they didn't want to do it. Couldn't have made it. They couldn't have made it, and I didn't take any of it. They gave me all kinds of painkillers and everything, and antibiotics, and of course I didn't take anything. They wanted to give me a tetanus, and I wouldn't do anything. No, the tetanus, you know, I had to say I'm allergic to. I'll go into a coma if you get it. It's the same with antibiotics. So they didn't fight because there are people with allergies. So when they came to giving me home medication, I just took the garbage because I didn't want them to worry. Oh, I made the pain formula. Well, my pain formula there was cheese and butter, which I had taken with me, dates, and cheese and butter and goat's milk. Remember, whenever the bones involved, cheese is very important.
I have a related question. How do you get the butter on the airplane?
No, what I had to do, when I'm working with any other airline all over the world, it's no problem. It was only the American airline companies, not American Airlines. They're the worst. To get them not to scan. American Airlines, you know, demand, both United demand. So what I did was, you know, I tried to smuggle it through once and they caught me and went to arrest me. And I said, "You're going to arrest me today because I had a bottle of milk in one pocket." Yeah, I have to eggs in one pocket.
I want to say honey to my body. I like to say it.
And, you know, they said, you trying to smuggle this? I said, you take this to court and the jury's going to laugh you out of the courtroom because I've got a bottle of milk with 6 eggs in my pocket. Do the math on it. So they let me go. So what I did was I went back to the airline counter and I said, listen, I have to have this checked in baggage, and you need to, you know, put it on without X-ray. So they took it to TSA. Took my letter, you know, TSA said okay. They checked it, and what the airline was very nice. Their representative had it handed to a guy to take it outside and hand it to me right at the gate so I could have my food on the airline. I was fortunate. That was a 36-hour flight.
I think just one more question about your experience. So basically, and having self-insurance for catastrophic accidents, and
Well, if you don't get into anything stupid like I did, you don't worry about it. Okay. So you've got automobile insurance, that's about the only place you're going to get into a possible accident. You have to be insured. So you're already insured for probably injuries.
so basically, if I were to get really messed up, I would tell the doctors to just
Good minimum.
do a minimum of everything. Justify
Wouldn't let them
and call Aajonus.
I wouldn't let them give me a tetanus or any shots of any kind except for the Novocaine when they were setting me up. While they were stitching me and everything, I wouldn't let them give anything.
So because of the diet, you don't experience injury.
I guess it's because of that, because I usually experience a lot more pain than I do now. In fact, after this job, I was waiting any moment for the pain to come out. And this happened at 2:15 in the morning. And I didn't get the dentist one available until noon. Well, one dentist was available at 10 o'clock, but he wouldn't do the surgery too bad for him. So he called in a dental specialist, and he wasn't available until 1 o'clock. He told me at noon, but he didn't get there until 1:50 in the afternoon. So 12 hours, almost 12 hours had gone by before the surgery. I still had until they start pulling. 8 months, hours. Okay, we'll start with Q&A. Lee, your question.
I looked at your remedy, so I have a reaction to it. And really, it was only yesterday I was able to start walking.
When did you stop?
December 7th.
Same day.
Same day? Thank you, about it. Anyway, so I looked in your one little book, remedies, and it just seems like, I guess, things like living healthy, but it just seems like, I wish I could do it, but I guess that it was nothing but I just acted play and all going on. Anyhow, do you have any other, what would you do besides the remedies that we can?
Well, I would drink milk that were available and cheese. Neither dairy holds poisons to the stomach. American Indians, if they have a lactating animal around and somebody got a scorpion or, you know, a bee sting or a snake bite, they drink the milk and milk withdrawal poisons to the stomach. Also, corn cob. That helps your nerves, but that doesn't necessarily get rid of them. But it does give your body some very finite proteins to handle venom.
And someone told me honey, but I never did it. Put honey right on, but stuff.
Yeah, but I understand. That does.
Yeah, can you explain the difference? I know sometimes you said they didn't have an Xbox style. Can you explain the benefits of having
Yes, eggs Rocky style are very good for just about any kind of maintenance. If you're going through any kind of heavy allergies, any kind of flu, bronchitis, pneumonia, times when you can't eat other foods, emphysema, you can't breathe properly, asthma, eggs, just keep eating egg Rocky style made. Don't mix anything with the egg. Did you see Rocky breaks 5 eggs and 2 glass and downs it? He wipes his mouth like this, and you don't wipe your mouth like this. All right.
So the yolk is not even broken on that, that is just taken.
Well, is that important that the yolk isn't broken?
Well, no, it's important that you don't whip it.
Oh, okay.
Because there are 3 enzymes in the egg white which prevent certain hormones that help certain diseases progress like cancer. And if those enzymes in the egg white are whipped, they oxidize within seconds.
And so those enzymes do what?
They prevent hormones that help disease, let's say, progress or detoxification progress. You don't necessarily want to progress detoxification, like to have more tumors develop. Even though cancer is a good thing, it's a collection of dead cells that you're not able to dissolve and get rid of, and it's a way to contain them in a particular area. Some people don't like the idea of tumors growing in their bodies, whether it's beneficial or not. And if it impedes the function of the gland or the esophagus or the lungs, then it's something you want to stop.
The egg will
Help. Right, and the egg whites are not whipped and oxidized.
the way they are, don't mix them.
Don't whip it.
How many?
You can have up to 30 a day.
But if we want a detox, then whip it up.
Or, just have it with some fruit and milk or fruit and cream, coconut cream, that'll help you detox heavily. Remember, anytime you put fruit with anything, it's going to be made into a soap, a solvent. Most fruit turns into alcohol in the digestive tract. Alcohol is used to utilize fat as fuel and as solvents, but mainly as solvents, soaps, dissolve toxicity in the body. So you're mixing eggs and fruit, cream, or coconut cream together, you know, detoxification. Make sure it's in the afternoon, not in the morning. In the morning, you want to stabilize your body, you want to think properly, you want to function well. You get everything balanced by, 2 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock. Have your fruit meal, and then don't have it after that, because if you have it after that, you might detox during the night, and you can't sleep, and then there's a problem. So,
Does that also promote circulation?
that's all right. Teresa will collect from you, and then do we have 3 more chairs?
got one.
More chairs. There's two there,
There's one here.
and there's one here. Oh, there's one over there too. Why not you do it? We need to keep it down, everyone, please. Kathy, wait until after. Go ahead.
So if the yolk and the white aren't mixed together, you're not getting as much detox, but that is better.
Wait a minute. If you don't whip it, it's a matter of oxidization. It doesn't matter if the egg yolk and the egg white are mixed together. It has nothing to do with it. It's the oxidization of the proteins and the enzymes in the egg white, which is destroyed by oxidization.
When you beat it, you beat air into it, which oxidizes.
You were saying one of the other ways is better.
If you want to prevent the cancer from progressing, then eat it without whipping your eggs. And you can plain. But if you just want to go into detox and you don't mind the tumors developing for a while and store those dead cells, then you have, your fruit, your eggs, and your cream. Some kind of cream or butter or some kind of fat. Coconut cream is always your best solvent. If you take coconut cream and you put it on one of those canning jar lids, in 20-30 minutes it will turn it black. Pull the metal up that quickly.
Will it actually over time, like strip the ceramic part that covers the metal?
Oh yeah.
On the can.
Start
I
breaking it
look, I
down.
had a jar and
Coconut cream, 50 years ago, when I was a child, almost all soaps were made with predominantly coconut fat, coconut oil, even the laundry detergent. It was wonderful, but now it's just petroleum.
What about eating the coconut? It comes in a jar of healthy sort of thing.
That's heated. It's not raw, it's not anywhere from 170 some degrees to 250. It's not raw. And it would be terribly salty reaction. It would be just like all of it. It's soothing to it. But when coconut cream is unheated, 40%, it has a 40% reaction of soothing. And all of your other pressed oils like olive oil, flax oil, they're 90% solvent reactive. There's no healing to it. There's no soothing of the tissue. So if you use olive oil and you use flax oil, I suggest that you use some butter and cream along with it. So as the oils dissolve the toxins in your body, you'll have the cream and butter to bind with those poisons, those waste products, and keep them from causing damage to yourself.
What about ground flax?
Ground flax is not a good one. Because it's impossible to digest in the human digestive tract. And it also causes lacerations in the villi, small intestines. If you're going to
But
use...
does it release the oil? Burning it?
No, it doesn't release the negative fraction. You have to be a vegetarian. Excuse me. You have to be a vegetarian animal to be able to digest cellulose that holds the fat molecule.
You said the cellulose that holds the fat molecule?
Right. All fat and protein are found within the cellulose structure, and it takes a vegetarian animal to do that. Much like I said in the books, that a vegetarian animal has 2.5 times longer digestive tract than we do. They have 2 to 4 stomachs. We have one. They have 60,000 times more enzymes to disassemble the cellulose molecule. And it passes through their body in 48 hours. It goes to us in 24 hours. So most we get is some enzymes and some vitamins. and some bulk, but you only need the bulk. The fiber if you're eating for food. On a raw food diet, it's completely raw. It's not beneficial. Cellulose. So we turn it alcohol.
Don't you like alcohol?
Prevent you from ingesting animal foods properly.
Don't you like alcohol? Isn't that supposed to be better than acidic?
No. Your body
Not the
has
stomach, but I'm talking about the body.
the body has to be acid all over except for the blood. Blood you want to be acid, more of a slightly out. If we were healthy, everything could be acid. We'd be fine. We're not healthy yet. We're not in acrid health. We're healthy acrid.
I've heard many good resources that cancer can only live in acid, that it cannot live in alkaline. So they're doing things to alkalize your body, and the tumors are disappearing.
I would say 50% of the cancer clients I have have been long-time vegetarians and are over alkaline. They're so alkaline they don't ingest any food unless they eat mono. One food at a time, spaced in between. These people are the worst cases of cancer over alkaline. So that's a fallacy. The worst condition that I found for cancer are people who live on carbohydrates.
I just talked to a girl who is taking cesium and turns you up middle alkaline. She's got breast cancer. She said within less than 4 weeks, they went to half size. And they're not hard anymore, they're not soft. She said they're all soft.
There are lots of ways, depending upon the body, how you stop the body from holding on to dead cells. They've accused 14 different hormones over the past 50 years of cancer. The medical profession, and you have to understand, the pharmaceutical community runs the medical profession. The pharmaceutical community wants you to keep in hope, keep you thinking that they're finding the answer. So they put all this propaganda out constantly, feed it to you constantly. So you keep going to a drugstore, keep going to the doctor to get medication, get the drug.
Well, Ralph Moss written up on this. He's not medical. He's a science or physical.
I know Ralph Moss. And Ralph Moss is a biochemist, not a physicist, biochemist. And he worked on laser, and basically he's still a biochemist. He looks at everything as not alive, but a chemistry. Laboratory. It's still not clean. Although when he did a review on my book, he said I went out and bought all the things he recommended. I didn't recommend it. All the food that I recommended. Well, let me keep it going here. Answered your question enough about the raw eggs?
Yes.
Okay. Your question, go ahead. Pull your question.
My question is that I just started exercising last week or so, and I was consultation about these and my best girl, my energy and some health, even though I was small.
Your health went down, your energy went up.
Yes.
Which, your health or your energy went up?
And so, a few days ago, I started
DHEA. It is a hormone. So, any kind of hormone will stimulate you, whether it's steroids or, Viagra or any of it. It's going to pump your system. That doesn't mean it's natural and healthy. gives you more energy.
Every hormone?
Pardon?
Every hormone?
Oh, Viagra's now
Supplemental, it stimulates more.
Every hormone will pump you up and give you energy. Every supplemental hormone will pump you up and give you
So
energy.
that's what they don't sell any of the lines. They don't pump.
Okay.
There's
And
nobody would buy them. It's pump.
natural hormones, are they all energy producers or some of them?
No, you have hormones that will cause sedation, all types of hormones, and those that are marketed. Unless you have hyperactive individuals, they do have a variety of drugs, hormone drugs, which help lower adrenaline levels.
Well, the reason I was thinking it was thyroid. I realized that I was diabetic, some it should stay there 24 hours. But my body just sucked it up with 2,000 times 10. It's gone. And thyroid reading work together. And so, trying to kind of balance this out a little bit to kind of help
Well,
it out.
that's the problem with chemistry. They don't look at biochemistry as different from chemistry. They see it only as chemistry. The problem with iodine, when it is free radical and it is not in a bioenzymatically bound ionic situation, it is toxic. It is also radioactive. So iodine is a dangerous substance. And I find it with iron people who've taken iodine supplements or had used contrast when they've had x-rays and scans done, it is called internal ulcerations that often cause cancer and a lot of other problems in constitution. The iodine that you put on your stomach and absorb, you don't know where it's going to go and what's going to damage. It's not a natural iodine. If you want a natural iodine, you go to the plant. It's concentrated and you won't have any problems. Always get the plant.
How about
Yeah.
kelp?
Kelp is indigestible. The cellulose, again, in fact, it's more complex seed vegetation. Seed cellulose is more complex than the earth cellulose. Much more difficult to break down. Pardon? All of it. Once it's dried, even if you eat it right out of the ocean, algae, it is still indigestible in the human digestion. You get very little value. Fish are made to eat. Vegetarian animals, herbivores are made to eat vegetables. There are apes and there are tribes which can do better than we do as a civilized society digesting vegetables. And they can digest more than we can. But it's still maybe only 40% instead of 20 to 30 that we do. So it's still not beneficial in the long run. We don't eat very much of it. That's what they done. Samburu, Fulani, and the Sai tribes are ever eating vegetation. They just live on milk, blood, and meat. Fulani mainly live 90% on milk, all milk. Fulani, F-E-L-A-N-I, Fulani tribe.
What about salads? That's what
I'm saying. Well, if you're a cooked fooder, yes. If you eat cooked food, you have putrefaction matter, you have a loss of enzymes and vitamins, so if you use salad or a cooked meal, it will provide some enzymes and vitamins and also provide fibers to help push the stuff that's not moving through because it's cooked. So on a raw diet, it will over-alkalize the intestines and you won't digest some dairy and other animal products properly. Interfere with proper digestion. Also, it gets very alkalinized in the colon. You can't responsible for synthesizing your B vitamins and amino acids to back up your insulin. So on a raw diet, 80% raw, salad is not something to have very often. If you're 100% raw, you can have one maybe once a year.
So how about tomatoes?
Tomatoes are not a fruit, not a vegetation, they're fruit. They're bland fruit. The only cellulose part of it that's complex cellulose is the skin.
How about avocados?
Avocados are a fruit. Anything that's a produce of a plant is a fruit. It's a leaf, stalk, or root vegetable. That's what's so complex.
So tomatoes would be best to stem if you want to avoid.
No, there's so little skin. Yeah, it'll just pass. And it's acid, so you don't have to worry about it. Well, you have to understand, any kind of hormone supplement is going to give you a boost. That doesn't mean it's healthy. And often it is not healthy. But people don't like, they don't want to, it's an alternative. They have coffee and other chocolate, other nerve stimulants.
So something that I have to go through my doctor.
Well, depends on what you need, lots of fat. If you're not eating exactly the other, you're not going to build your own hormones. If you're eating them together and you're eating enough, you're going to build your own hormones. And they won't be toxic. DHEA is toxic. It's forcing the nerve in and causes the cancer to progress very rapidly when it's collecting. Cool. One of the pilots one of the
So, but if someone's thyroid is not working,
there are all of your glands can supplement drugs. Your parathyroid that I've seen, I would say probably 50% of my clients have malfunctioning thyroid. But their parathyroid are very active. They're way overactive and they're making up for the inactivity of the thyroid. The adrenals can overproduce and the body can convert some of that adrenaline into any other hormone, supplement in the body. People just don't eat enough raw meat and raw fats together to make sure that the body can do its balancing. Most people are shoving foods into themselves all the time, all the heterocyclamines, the lipid peroxides, and acrylamide, all of the poisons that go with it without the vitamins and enzymes, the body can't function properly. So when you're on this kind of a diet, you have to have a different thinking. You don't go out there for supplementation.
That doesn't tap your adrenals over stress stomach or anything like that for thyroid.
If you're eating properly and those are healthy glands. Look at it this way. The stress in our environment is scary now. If you know how to live outdoors, or you're living outdoors every day, you're out in the wind, you're out in the change, the temperature changes, you're dealing with the sunlight, you're dealing with the coldness of the night, you're dealing with the wind chill factor, that's stress. You can imagine living in Alaska and going to a beach and do that. And they do it very easily as long as they're on raw foods, which is predominantly fat. And they can handle it all easily and become the happiest races. If you're eating properly, your body can do a lot. You can handle the little stress there is in our environment. The worst thing we have in our environment is pollution. Air pollution, water pollution, all of that. You get beyond that, eat well enough, and it won't affect you.
You're saying that someone has a very low thyroid, not taking advantage of it?
Absolutely. Well, if you're going to take, if you want a natural thyroid, take thyroid, eat a thyroid. That's the only natural thyroid you're going to get.
to be on
Well, eat one. How long it takes you to start feeling fatigued again, or lower energy, which is usually comes with a low inactive or lowly active thyroid, inactive thyroid. And then just eat it again. When I first ate one, it lasted for about 3 months. The next time it lasted for 6 months. The next time it lasted for 12 months. The next time it lasted for 18 months. The next time it lasted for 3 years. Where do you get it? There are sources.
Well, I remember.
Check with Kathy if you want sources.
That's what that. I remember you mentioning that sometimes the thyroid might be malfunctioning because it's loaded with toxins, and so an individual might want to take a certain amount of time near before they start eating glands to help rebuild it.
No, if you're eating a high gland, extreme cellular like that. But if you're eating, fresh thyroid, that's fine. If you're eating high thyroid, you might want to take some time to build the toxin. Yeah, years usually safe.
How would you know that your thyroid is malfunctioning?
Well, I can tell by looking at the palm. But if you have enough energy in your day, you walk into work, you get okay. Your glands are functioning well enough. What about that has to do with protein. If you had on it clear thinking that means your body's using carbohydrate as fuel and you've got too many advanced glycation enzymes or acrylamide that you're eating cooked, floating in blood causing stickiness in the nervous system. When you make when you use pyruvate, with the use of glucagon as your nerve fuel instead of carbohydrate, you only have a 7 to 8% byproduct of advanced glycation enzymes. That's sticky. But with carbohydrates, you have a 70 to 90% byproduct of advanced glycation enzymes. The whole brain gets sticky. That's what's called the attention deficit disorder. If you start your day off, after the juice, an hour later, start your day off with a meat and fat, you're going to be clear thinking. Save your fruit for the afternoon.
If you wait till lunchtime, noon, to eat the meat, it's too late.
Should be within an hour and a half of getting out of bed. But it's even better if it's not an hour and a half. You get up and have the juice immediately, and 45 minutes to an hour later have your meat meal. You're going to function and think a lot better. You have more clarity, more focus.
Even in the middle of the afternoon.
Even in the middle of the afternoon. Because it burns slowly, just like cars that burn up in a mass of combustion. Okay, next question.
Well, one of my questions was that answer was about two acids that cancer grows on an acid phase. And what about the hydrogen with acid backing up in the blood? What do you do?
Well, I mentioned that in the book. Hydro just means that you have a lot of toxic. One of the places where the stomach secretes its hydrochloric acid is through the stomach wall. It's all absorbed into it. And when it does that, it gets into the tissues. If you're eating a toxic diet, cooked food, with all the acrylamide and the lipid peroxide, that's going to create an acidic condition and it gets into your tissues because you don't have enough mucus coating the mucous membrane or the alimentary canal. It's going to absorb into the tissue. And when it does right into the hyla, which is the membrane between the stomach and lungs, it's going to cause heartburn and dumping. Because it will dump its acid right into the esophagus. And it will cause burning. And you have to detox.
Never had burning, but I had pneumonia. After the last time with pneumonia, they said I ripped the tissue common for that. I've had it frequent. I never had burning, but I have a super pop.
You got all that acidic tissue, acidic compound in the tissue. It causes ulceration. Basically, hernia is like an ulcer or a slice.
Yeah, I've been in
Well, it takes a certain kind of eating, a certain program, focus on your system. I can't tell you.
Yes, recently I detoxed with a severe cold. And I suspect maybe because weeks earlier I had been exposed to a lot of toxic fumes. But this was the first time I had detoxed with a cold in, 3 or 4 years, I think. Anyway, it was quite severe, and I followed the recipe book for what to take when you have cold or flu symptoms. And the fruit shakes and tea and that. But my question is, why did I feel so severe? The most severe headaches I've had in a long time the first night. And I just had to go through it, and by taking these detoxing formulas, does that make it more severe or less severe? Just what was exactly the role of the detoxing formulas in my case?
Well, that's the questions I'm going to have to give Tom about answers. Whenever you have a detoxification like a cold or flu, you're in the detoxification. The body may have been breaking down tissue for months, even years. You have a viral or bacterial or parasitic in there eating up some decaying tissue, or the virus dissolving, collects in the lymph and other tissues. Then when the body's ready to dump it out the mucous membrane, that's when you have the mucus. Like after having a Novocaine here. Every 3 days, I go through, my eyes just start creaming, literally get a cream out of my eyes. And the nose starts running. And it may last a couple of hours, and then you go away for 3-4 hours, and come back again. But it happens only 1 day every 3 days. The way the body expresses it to get rid of it. But when you're going through a cold or a flu, that is the end of a very long cycle of detoxification. So that's the healing crisis where you're getting rid of the bacteria, lowering the bacteria levels. You're no longer manufacturing the viral levels with the solvents, the dissolved tissue. The viruses are not alive. They don't self-replicate. It's like saying Tide, because it's in everybody's home, self-replicate. We have industries in the body, sub-laboratories, sub-particle laboratories, that produce these soaps called virus. Virus dissolves cells and tissue, and that bacteria and parasites cannot eat because it would kill them and detoxify. The body builds viruses with soap. This is all medical professionals love to scare you with viruses. Going to get you that are contagious. It's bullshit. It's high contagious. High contagious.
High.
So true. No.
So you say the viruses, they have a certain job to deal with parasites?
Parasites and bacteria can eat organic tissue, break it down, even if it's toxic, and eliminate it from the system. If it is too toxic with our industrial pollutants, the body has to use solvents, like virus, to dissolve these compounds. Those wastes are highly toxic. You take a vulture or crow, and they'll eat this whole animal, and they'll put a turd out this big the next day. They reduce this huge animal to a turd. That's the toxicity that prevents a lot of pollution, air pollution, gas pollution in our atmosphere. That's what viruses and parasites, bacteria and parasites do. When the body uses virus, it isn't the same thing at all. It does not consume it. It is a solid. It is a soap. It is a chemical that dissolves, and you have all of this fluid that will come around and dilute it. So you have this vast amount of waste product. Bacteria and parasites do that, they reduce the product so it can be eliminated. A lot can be eliminated in a short period of time. When your body uses viruses, you have all this accumulation of waste product. It's diluted and everywhere. Very difficult. The more industrial we get, the more polluted we get, the worse it gets for us. And the more likely they have to use viruses rather than bacteria and now parasites. And, over in Thailand, people take, the medical profession has got them thinking, I put aloe vera, cut fresh aloe vera, put it on my lips and ear. The doctors went nuts because it wasn't sparing. And they've got all of these people thinking that if you come in contact with somebody and about every 3 or 4 hours you have to take a shower. Some of these people take 4 to 8 showers a day and they use soap after soap after soap. That soap is into the body, destroying bacteria. So the only thing they can use to dissolve anything in their system are viruses. It's a lot more toxic. Bacteria and parasites. So they've got all of the medical profession has these small herbal companies, and most everybody here in this country too. Everybody's afraid of it. It's whole farm around the world.
What's that?
Whole farm. When you take anti-parasitical material, drugs, to get rid of your parasites. Best friend, the one show you the friend. Yeah, we got some people. They're beneficial. Well, if you're swapping slobber, kissing somebody, rubbing cups around, you exchange bacteria. Well, you can't catch it. Like I said, you didn't read my book. Well, I said in there, contagious is over, it's like bears come out of hibernation. You have bacteria and parasites that come out of hibernation in your body when the atmosphere and time is right. Correct. So that's why it seems slightly pandemic. People get it all at the same time, the same kind of bacteria. Well, that's because they're coming out of hibernation. And you have a 7-year cycle. You've got about somewhere around 60 varieties of bacteria that feed on different parts of your body. And only certain ones can come out at certain times in the 7-year cycle. And people get the same ones. Well, they get the same ones because that's when they come out of hibernation. Not because they're contagious, but the medical profession gets you to run to them and take their medications and everything. The pharmaceutical houses, the medication. Because you're in fear. Because you don't understand. It's got nothing to do with contagion. Disease are really contagious. Everybody would be sick.
What about something like the needle? I mean, it's a dangerous it's just
The meaty dysentery were dangerous. Everybody in third world countries would be dead. Why is it just Americans go down and, British go down and Canadians go down to these places and introduce the anemia into the system, they have so much trouble. And it isn't the diarrhea and vomiting that's the problem. When they go for the medication, that's what causes the death. It's called anaphylaxis. So it's the treatment for the dysentery. So the amoebas go in there and help you with damaged tissue.
Regarding my question, if I eliminated a lot of mucus this time, went
To
through
produce mucus, those foods that I suggest, eggs and milk, help produce a lot of mucus and can carry the poisons out with the mucus.
they work then, I certainly have a lot of mucus.
That's what we're after. Otherwise, they stay in the tissue.
So the foods, if I felt a lot of severity, it's the foods that I'm building up to go through this cycle of elimination.
Right. Otherwise, they're just going to the blood system or connective tissue. That's usually some very hardened tissues of the body. It's eliminating this heavily mineral balance. Concentrated so it dehydrates quickly.
Would that apply to the harder yellow and green mucus at the end of a cycle of a cold? That's when I always notice it coming out of my lungs.
Yeah.
So
mineral balance.
So something about mineral balance. It's linked to some.
On the diet, usually the cold people get every 3-4 years.
Well, I like people to get it several a year. That's why if you do the weight gain and weight loss, you're basically forcing it.
So if I have more colds, once I'm on weight loss and weight gain, I should consider myself grateful.
Absolutely.
Even 6-7 weeks of the mucus flowing.
No wonder. How many years did you eat crap food? Toxic food?
40 years.
Okay.
40?
How much mucus do you think you could have to use to get rid of all that?
Ask Einstein.
Okay. Next.
You asked me the question. I've been getting a lot of pressure from the family. It's flu shot for a weekend condition at chemo. And I wonder if kind of a 20 words or less, instead of them being not stubborn, saying, no, not something, a little, the explanation give you we understand. I don't know how to problem that. I said, when they said, you're in a weekend condition, you need that flu shot. I said, I'm in a weekend condition, why would I want to put that in?
Yeah, good.
Is that it?
That's exactly it.
What?
There's no statistics that any vaccine works. Not one. There's no laboratory test to prove that any vaccine works. Any at all. It is all theoretical.
And where would that research information be found?
It's all over the internet.
It's all over the internet?
All over the internet.
Okay.
You put in vaccines and you go into those vaccine websites that are not medically produced, you'll find a lot of information.
Don't we have mercury in
Most of them.
It affects the nerves, mercury.
With the thymosin.
Who knows if there's very
I think they're out with chemicals.
Someone's phone.
Shut up.
Okay, yes.
I want to tell everyone that I go through. I've been on the diet 6 months, and I by the way, I couldn't go 2 hours without eating. I would shake, I would totally, I mean, I was a mess. And I can go all day, which is not good, but when I can't get food, it's wonderful not to have it bothering me.
One time we went over
And I
that
think-
lobe of sugar.
Yeah, it just drop all the time, all the time. Now, it's like a new diet. And I think it's the protein, the meat.
Protein and the fats together.
And I-
And how many months were you on the diet before you had your surgery and your back? Was it
when I
1
got
month?
diagnosed, and
Was it only 1 month you ate the raw diet before you had surgery? And your tumor was way smaller?
oh,
than
no,
what it
that was 6 months because I had the chemo, which left me totally completed. But once I started on the diet even more, because I was eating the raw meat,
You mean after I gave you a specific
Yeah.
diet for you, then your energy?
yes, definitely the meat for that.
Oh, I just thought,
And the fat.
I just thought you told me that when you finally got your surgery, the doctors were amazed that instead of the tumor being the size of a grapefruit, it was
Yeah.
only a little
It
thing.
was the size
Minuscule.
7 centimeters,
Yeah.
and once they took it out, the rest of it was 1.
But that's like nothing, it's almost
I'm
just
saying,
needing
well, why
surgery.
did you do surgery? That's why.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
one, couldn't you find that out in the biopsy?
No, you were shrinking, and by the time they got to surgery, it had shrunk so much. They didn't know it was
I
shrinking.
could.
Plus biopsy where they have these breakdowns.
They were,
Well, biopsy is taking the tube, throwing it into your tissue, taking a whole section of tissue out. So all, no matter if it's nerve, if it's layers of tissue, all of it starts bleeding into each other. So you've landed, taken a plump of tissue, as deep as you do that biopsy into that tissue, all of that stuff drains into each other. And they don't belong into each other.
I thought they only did that to trees.
Yeah, and wells. Here, you get wells.
Was it a tumor and a cancer?
Pardon?
Tumor and a cancer.
Well, you could have basal cell cancer, just not tumor.
Tumor is just a collection of cells.
Dead cells. Squamous cell or basal cell. The basal cell is more acidic and dissolves itself. Squamous cell develops. It's larger.
Cancer is
Squamous cells are usually, it's like a scaly growth that keeps growing. Your basal cell cancer starts melting as it grows. It just keeps melting itself.
Do you have an internal?
Oh, yes, you can.
Huh.
A lot of bone cancer, my cancer, dissolving the bone.
So why do people die from cancer? If it's kind of a detox, what you said earlier.
Because they don't eat the proper foods. They just get more toxin and more toxin. They don't have the nutrients to clean it. Just like you try to clean it, let's say you're going to raise this building and rebuild it, but you have no materials to break it down right, and all your workers come in and get toxic. They have no mask. They have nothing to start carrying everything down. So they die and can't even get off the property. So you keep bringing more people in to do the work, and there are more bodies lying. It just keeps getting worse. You don't have the proper material, nor the vehicles to transport the decaying matter out of the system. On this diet, it doesn't change anything. People think that this diet causes more detoxification. It does not. There's 12 to 18% less detoxification that occurs in people on the diet than are off the diet. However, the thing that's different between this diet and normal eating, the SAD diet, Standard American diet, is that you heal properly on this diet after you detoxify properly. So you get younger and healthier every day instead of getting toxic every day.
Each person is different as far as the time it takes them.
Absolutely. Well, no, I found that they go through different kinds of detoxes, and their body will take care of different parts of the body differently than other people. But overall, it still takes 40 years for everyone, if they're 100%.
Talk about doing coffee and
That's not healthy.
liver flushes.
Those aren't healthy. That's nothing to do with primal diet. Those are aggressive ways of trying. It's like beating a child to get it to be behaved. Not a way to do it. Do you have a question? Yes.
I've got a question about, concern about the possible radiation emitted from the computer monitors on the backs of the seats on the aeroplane.
Computer what?
The computer monitors on the backs of every seat. On the back.
There's an LCD.
So those are basic.
You take a meter right up to them.
Oh, for the television you're talking about? LCD?
Yeah, the monitors, yeah.
In airplanes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all right.
They're all LCD screens.
So they get a couple inches away, no problem.
No. The radiation fallout on those LCD screens is about an inch.
But there is a seat in the back of the headrest.
Inch and a half. And they're 4 inches, 6 inches thick.
One last second word though.
Yeah. Very good, your section.
Sure. Regarding dehydrated food, so if you mentioned that they're useless if they've been dehydrated, so it doesn't matter if they've been dehydrated at a very low temperature or if they're
Doesn't make any difference. If I dehydrate you and you die at a low temperature, are you going to come back to life?
I'm really spiritually powerful.
Well, congratulations. Say I touched you.
But I mean, with like the minerals and the vitamins that wouldn't some of those
You have to
remain?
understand, enzymes make use of everything. It's like if I go into a factory and I kill all my workers, are my managers going to be able to do anything? It takes the enzymes to make everything be utilized properly.
And so soaking something in mineral water wouldn't necessarily
That doesn't provide enzymes. What it will do, it'll start, if you take something that's dehydrated and rehydrate it, you'll have enzymes for decomposition that are starting to form, but not sustain life. A life of a growing, living substance.
So
It will be for decomposition, for decay.
Okay, and
Same with freezing foods. You freeze the food, immediately what does it do? Every cell will go start into decomposition.
could that be useful for any detoxification process?
Along with smokers, people do that. That's why tell smokers and other people who have lung problems eat ice cream.
Eat ice cream.
Eat ice cream.
What about the sugar?
Pardon?
I mean, the raw ice cream.
Raw ice
We're not talking, when I'm talking here, everything's raw. We're not talking about coffee enemas, coffee's cooked, all that stuff. We're talking about raw foods only.
But with ice cream, I haven't ever made the ice cream. According to your recipe, do you freeze it? Or no?
Well, when you do it like that, you froze it.
So you're saying that frozen ice cream, according to your recipe, is good for smokers?
Good for smokers and anybody who has lung problems, emphysema, asthma, any of that.
However, rehydrating something dry that's in some kind of that has all these decomposition enzymes isn't necessarily a beneficial thing. So there are no like herbs that could be dried at low temperatures and then soaked and then used to facilitate.
Yeah, you can. You can create that. That's what some of the stuff I'm going to go over in the detox book. And you could take molds of anything and enzymes for deterioration of anything and help get rid of it. Of similar substances within your body. Like people lived on, let's say, I ate a lot of sugar because when I was a kid, I just boxes, sometimes a couple boxes a day when I was in school. I was in college or high school. I ate what I wanted to. Sugar's risk, rice, pumped rice, basically with lots of sugar on it. So I used to take rice and let it break down into a mold and then eat it to help clear some of that out of my system. Every food that I've eaten cooked, I eat mold. I eat moldy to help clear it out of my system. When you cook a food, you destroy all the natural ecological breakdowns that naturally occur to help you eliminate waste products of any food. They're cooked, they're destroyed. So how do you replace them? You have to grow them and ingest them.
So there's still usefulness in the future for dehydrated herbs and other.
Well, I prefer you don't dehydrate them. I prefer that they, you get them moist, you break them up, and all the different kinds of molds, so it's a little bit more active. You'll have more enzymes even if you create a mold on a fresh food than you will on a dehydrated food. There'll be a lot less enzymes on a dehydrated food. So many complications going on. It will get done when we get done. Probably June.
Oh, this year? Oh.
No, next year.
Oh, next year. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Explain how eating ice cream is going to encourage the flames of the lungs to detoxify?
Well, I didn't create the world.
You did it?
I created my world, but not the world in general. I just watch what it does. And I noticed that in all of my patients that had lung problems or smokers, that when they had ice cream, within hours sometimes they would start coughing up mucus. So this is something I learned over a 10-year period by observing what happened. I don't have a clue why it does it on those people, mainly those people.
You just said that the enzymes form a decaying...
Yes, but why does it go to the lungs and not somewhere else? Why not the liver? Because the liver deals with fat more than anything else. I don't know, but it goes to the lungs.
So if you lose a lot of fluid in areas,
Is the pollution absorbed into your lungs, sinus cavities? Donvier.
where does their phone number?
The hand crank Donvier.
Where do you get it?
Find it on the internet.
Find it on the internet. Donvier, Donvier.
You don't have an internet. I found one at the yard sale.
Donvier.
How did you don't have an internet? Is there any other way you can
Go to a library. I found a couple.
particular one that you saw?
Yeah, the Donvier is nice. If you get the electrical crank ones, you're putting EMFs directly in your ice cream. When you hand crank, use a hand crank, you only have to turn it every 5 minutes. You have to churn it for a minute out of every 5 minutes, and 20 minutes, 25 minutes, you have ice cream.
Does somebody have it that I can call them and get their phone number? I don't have an internet.
Give me your phone number.
It's 310.
Later. Albert, do you have a...
This diet was for people with mental problems.
mental problems? The only diet they should be on. And they should have lots of protein and more of the alkalizing proteins with the acid proteins. So you should be mixing red and white together. They should not eat red meat.
Not eat red meat.
At the
If
same
you have
meal,
mental
mean?
problems,
At the
the
same
same
meal?
meal.
Chicken and
Chicken and fish and beef all together, preferable way.
You were talking about food problems and nerves, or that kind of related?
No, it depends on the person's, mental problem, the chemical imbalance that's causing their mental issues. Really, it has to get specific in those cases.
you told somebody that when they have their juice in the morning, they should have meat. But
45 minutes to an hour later.
Yeah, but you told me in my consultation that I should have eggs first. So it's different for everybody.
Well, that was for the time that I saw you, and that was for a year. Whether you still should do that, I don't know. Whether I would still recommend it, I don't know. But you have some toxicity, some kind of chemical toxicity that needed to be pulled out after a sleep state. But the way you can remedy that, you have juice, and then you can have your eggs and meat together. That's the way I do it. And especially now, because I can't chew, so I have to chop my meat and make it very slimy and let it slide down. You guys didn't get it. I got mugged in Thailand, so they broke my jaw, so it was wired. So, Joe question.
Yeah. I ran across this tape lecture by, I think his name was Dr. Wallach, I can't remember exactly. Anyway, the main point that he made was, he said the longest living people, he quoted about 6 tribes or 6 nations. They sort of like the Hunza, the Titicaca, and about 4 others. And he attributed their longevity to them living at high altitudes where all the crops were fed by mineral glacier water, which was like very milky because it had a high mineral content. So essentially what he was saying, their longevity was due to the fact that the water they drank plus the food they ate was irrigated with very high mineral content. Is that true at all?
Well, I've heard that theory. I've heard that theory since the late 60s. There's no proof of that. No one's gone into to see if there's a difference. There is a group of people in Georgia, Russia. It's not high altitude, and they are the ones that National Geographic did. I mean, they're not high altitude, maybe 2,000 feet. They live to, I think the oldest one was about 166, 168. And the average was about 127, 130. And there was one couple that was married for 92 years, and that was their second marriage.
60 Minutes did a special.
Did they?
Yeah, it opened up with a man 105 to one to his mother's birthday party. It was great. They walk up and down mountainous terrain all day. The cameraman couldn't keep up with them, the young guys. But they drink, they smoke. But the most important thing I saw, they had a family love that was so incredible. The grandparents, great-grandparents, great, all lived together. And they are the teachers of the young, and they're nurtured, and they're loved. And there was such a close love between them all. That was the most important.
Well, there's lots of those people that way all over the world. And they still have diseases within them. But they lots of raw meat and lots of raw eggs.
The Georgians?
With
Yeah.
National Geographic and those Discovery Channels shy away from this. Discovery Channel called me 4 times over the past year talking about doing a show, and every time they get scared. So they don't like to present anything that goes against the medical profession. So they don't present to you what the really people really eat. Fulani and those kind of people, they do because they're African and it's okay. But when it comes to a white man eating that way, they do not publish it. They have scheduled me for filming 3 times in Kansas. Canceled. 3 times. So, you can't believe what National Geographic or those people say because they are mainly academics who are making those documentaries and they are very brainwashed, medically oriented academics.
And also, they've got a job to keep.
Yes.
Right. They have sponsors to keep.
Absolutely, yeah.
What about Weston Price? I mean, do you think that...
Weston Price was an adventurer. He was not a scientist. He lived very brief times, very short times with tribes. He really didn't get to know them, their culture, because most tribes, when I was traveling, would tell you everything but lies, unless you lived with them for a very long time. And they are mistrust the white man completely. There are many things that the American Indian used to tell the white men they would do for their strength and endurance, though they were very unhealthy to do, and they wanted the white man to hurt himself. And they would pretend to do these things. So Weston Price was an adventurer. He was not a scientist.
But he took a lot of photos.
Yeah, but you have to take a look. If I took those same photos, I can go into a civilization with a wide jaw and everything, and you can't call a wide jaw normal for that civilization because you have all kinds of bone structures that are different. You can go into India and see the same type of bone structure everywhere in the world. You can go to Thailand, Malaysia, everywhere. Some people have big jaws, some people have little jaws. And even if they're eating healthy, you go with the Maasai the same way. The Fulani, these people who have no diseases, and you have different bone structures. It's just a difference in nature. But he would take pictures of people and make these, like the Nazis did, make these huge extrapolations on it and base these theories on it. And it has nothing to do with fact. The only thing that I did agree with him was congested teeth. If they went off their natural diet that their body wasn't used to assimilating, whether it was cooked or raw, their teeth would bunch together and cause, buck teeth or double teeth or...
Right, because they would show a family with 6 children, and the parent had the first 2 children while they were eating their native diet.
Right.
And then they went to work for 4 years at an American camp and had sugar and stuff. And they'd show the next 2 children who had one clubfoot and they had messed up teeth.
Yes.
And then they'd move back to their tribal land, eat their tribal diet, and the next 2 kids didn't have normal.
That was the only thing I agreed with. Francis Pottinger was a scientist. I mean, taking 900 cats over a 10-year period and giving them different diets and following each one specifically, photographing everyone at autopsy. That's science. That man was a scientist. And he proved that raw food creates health in cooked foods, and depending upon the cooking and the processing, the degree, the worse the disease.
And I was just talking with someone earlier about this, and I'm throwing it out there. So I was saying that your theory is that this diet is the optimal diet, but that the body can withstand a lot of assault from cooked foods. So if, for example, what Weston Price was saying about their diet, say, being 50% cooked, even if that wasn't more than it was, that because they didn't have all the pollutants in there, they didn't have, I don't know, maybe other factors to deal with, that they were still able to have that really nice jaw structure and be free of decaying teeth.
Look, you have to understand, these people ate 5, 6 foods at the most. So their bodies got used to it, even when cooked. There was the chemistry that the body learned. We have what is it, somewhere around 642,000 new chemicals in the last 100 years. Bodies can't even get used to it. There's no way we're going to have health again unless you're on a completely raw diet. I mean, there's no way you can handle the pollution in the air unless you're on 100% raw diet. I mean, if we go out and live in the, the Tules, with some native tribe where there's no pollution, we might get away with, being that we came from a very toxic cosmopolitan society, we might get away with 10-20% corporate and be in marvelous health. But we're not.
Where do you get the idea of trying cooking food, or is that a European idea, or they started cooking food? Just kind of.
There are lots of theories about why cooking started. There are many, many, many theories. And most of them are because if we watch the American Indians when they used to do it, the Koster excavations in Ohio and Indiana show that the American Indians would migrate to that whole valley along the Mississippi River there, and the Ohio Valley, and they would stay there for about 175 years every time they do it. But they couldn't stay there for more than that without forming disease, because they'd hunt around the area. They would kill all the animals, then they'd have to rely upon agriculture. They'd have to rely upon plants and nuts and seeds and grain, cultivating them. You don't digest those very well. We're not cows, we're not herbivores. So they started, cooking them to be able to release and eat more of it and assimilate more of it, but then you have all the toxicity that goes along with it. So within 175 years of doing that, they started developing osteoporosis and other diseases. So then they would give up the land and then go, become nomads again, get their health back. But they always had an inclination to be rooted. But when you root and your society develops, and you don't have refrigerators, meat doesn't keep unless you dry it, and then dried meat doesn't give you a lot of health. Because there's no enzyme.
Can I back up for a moment? Because this concerns me, it concerns no one else, and I'm fine with it. But, I listen a lot, and I take what you say as truth in a way. And the one thing...
You don't have to tee it up. You can come out with questions.
Yeah, okay, I don't have to because I know how I am.
Okay.
But, like I listened to about the Indians and how they told us things to mislead us, so we hurt ourselves, or whatever. And I go, well, where does that come from? I don't know where you learned that, or because then I take it and go, go tell the next guy. And, I don't know where, I'd like to know, where's the basis of that? I mean, did you read it someplace? Or?
No, when I was living with the Indians, the Yaqui Indians told me the same thing, and the Mayan Indians told me the same thing. The Inuit in Alaska.
Did that.
Yeah, well, they still did. All of them. Any white man would come around, they would tell them tales. They really were not helpful.
So how long were you with them before you were trusted by them?
Usually about 10 days. But there was a very different level. I was involved through that. There was a very different level. I mean, you could see the elders knew could size me up in an instant. They were the ones that always let me stay. They were the ones to make the decision. But, get them the conversation. They would tell the stories about how they got this white man to do this and this and that. Roger, do you have a question?
Let me pass for now.
Okay, you have a question.
Yeah, I live out of the area, about 3 hours from here, and it's hard for me to get fresh meat on a weekly basis. What can I do? As far as
you live?
Near Big Bear, And the closest store is like in this area, Whole Foods, for the fresh. I'm looking for. I know you said you could buy store-bought meat, but I'd rather come out here and buy
Grazed.
grass-fed.
Right.
How can I store it, or what can I do?
Put it in glass jars.
Okay.
I can keep it for months or a year then. I kept it for a year then. It's just that you need to bring your jars in town with you.
Bring it out to the store.
Take it to the, you have to take it in your car. And have, block of ice there with you in your cooler. And you have the jars in the cooler getting cold, and you have them cut it into slices. If you just want to have them do it all for you, it's very quick to do. So, long slices like this, depending on what wood cut you're getting, top round, bottom round, sirloin, whatever. Have them cut it into strips. Shove it in the quart wide mouth jars. Put the lid on it, right out your car. I do it because I live in Malibu. It's an hour for me. So I shove it into those jars in the trunk, put it in the cooler, and I can keep it for a year.
Do I have to air the meat every once in a while?
You never want to air it unless you want it hot.
Okay, so
The one that I kept a year, I hadn't opened it for a year. From the time I brought it home, I never opened it. When I opened it, there was no odor, fresh as fresh.
And half the top.
Oh, because.
No, it was not.
Oh, what is
No,
it? Because
I had about that much airspace.
Oh, because you have the ice on it? You kept it so long.
Just because I kept it chilled in the refrigerator.
You kept it in the refrigerator?
Yeah.
As long as you don't open it.
Correct, and you keep it in the refrigerator.
I know I could open it and it'd still keep a long time, but it'd turn into honey.
Yeah.
Okay. I have the ability to purge and put CO2 or nitrogen in those jars. Would that be of any benefit?
Be ill benefit. Be a detriment.
All right.
But, there are other ways. You can put a little, some colostrum, a little thin layer of colostrum, or kefir, or soured milk, or soured cream on top, and that'll seal it too, but then you're going to have that flavor that permeates the entire meat.
I know a lot of your
Honey
theories.
you could do on top too.
I know a lot of your theories are on bacteria, the healthy bacteria. Have you ever considered fermented things, especially vegetables? And do you think they're still unhealthy?
No, I still ferment sometimes for detoxification. But I'm going to go into that for detoxification.
Okay, so you think that fermented vegetables could play a role?
Only because you've eaten cooked ones.
Oh, by themselves. Well, okay, that still probably applies to everything. Okay.
Yeah. And not a lot, just a little to help detoxification.
All right.
Do you have a question?
No, I didn't.
Do you have a question? Hurry. Okay. Do you have a question?
Okay. That clay that you are recommending, what brand, where are we with the brand? What's the brand?
Well,
name?
one that I know is okay is the French green clay.
French green.
But the one I'm experimenting with, and during this whole incident, is Terramin. Terramin.
Terramin.
Yeah, and you can go to www.terramin.com.
www.terramin.com.
Is that a brown clay?
No, it's a white clay. It's an off-white clay. That's the color of the wall. A little bit browner, beige.
And how do we use it again?
Well, it depends. Whatever I call for it in the in the books, use them anywhere there. Of course, if you have pain, it helps in pain. I blend that with my pain point. A little bit of that to add minerals. Because you can always use clay combined with toxic minerals. You have to understand that when you have toxic compounds in your body uses minerals to bind with it, and then fats to chelate with that, remove it from the body. So your body doesn't use good, healthy minerals like from your juice and your food to bind with toxins in your body. I prefer using cheese and clay for that. So that the minerals from my juice and the minerals from my food will be used to strengthen regenerate or produce new cells. So that is the only supplement that I use. Basically, I call, because cheese is a dried substance, and it's not fresh and it's not high in enzymes, I call it a supplement. And clay is the same way, it's a supplement. Those are the only supplements I agree with. Well, of course, I did mention in the book that, some dehydrated glandular tissue can stimulate, growth and activity of that gland, but it's always preferable to get the gland fresh and eat it fresh or eat it, high.
Can we use any clay, or is there certain clays we should stay away from?
Very specific about clays. Let me tell you, most clays have volcanic molten metals in them, like mercury, uranium, and all of that, and they don't work for health, yet they promote them, like the Aztec secret clay. That is from a volcanic bed, and it is full of molten metals. And when I was doing tests for years with that, it added scarring to an area. It would allow for, and they kept promoting it as healing, and yet it wasn't healing like the Indian clay that I used. When I lived outdoors for 3 years, the Indians got me to use clay a lot. But I pulled the clay right out of the river beds and the stream beds, and used that to make it seal a wound like this seal. Clay, the terramine, and it worked pretty quickly. This had fragments of board and everything else in the pavement. So it's still full of dirt, but the terramine still worked pretty well. I still think the French green clay works a little bit better, but it's hard to tell the difference.
The French green clay.
You still recommend?
Pardon?
That French green clay you said was good, where do you find it?
The Co-Opportunity has it in the bulk department. Whole Foods over at Centinela and National has it in bulk in the cosmetic department.
You can order 5 pounds from mountainroadherbs.com for really, really effective.
Pardon? I just said, to bind with toxic metals and other poisons to pull them out of the system. You can drink it and apply it, on the surface. Apply it to wounds to create a quick, let's say you get like here, I got a gash. I got hit by a crowbar here or a hammer, I don't know which it was, and a board here, those were pretty dirty. So, I wouldn't let the hospital clean it, because they clean it with iodine and stuff like that. So I let them clean the blood away with alcohol. I let them I give them a little bit, something that's not so damaging. So I let them clean around it, but I wouldn't let them clean out the wound with methylated curachrome or iodine. So I knew that I had to have the clay to draw it out. So I had them take the stitches out 2 days early. 2 days early, because I wanted it to open up again, just a tiny bit. So then I packed the clay on it. The still clay hasn't been removed. That lets me know that it's still toxic, because usually if I put clay on and there's not a lot of toxins in the cut, the clay will drop off and the scab will go away almost immediately within days. This has been now 7 days. So I know there was dirt in there, there was lodged in there, that the clay is out pulling out.
The middle is
Oh, I don't get it. Well, I got it wet today, but usually I don't get it. Wash around it.
So you don't have any sense that clearing it and putting fresh clay on that would maybe draw, might help pull the stuff out even better? Because doesn't, I guess I'm just thinking that, I'm guessing that because you haven't changed the poultice or whatever you're calling it, you're thinking that, I don't know, I've always understood with poultices that you change them so that you can put fresh
Well, clay is not a
drawing
poultice.
Or, okay.
Clay is not a poultice. A poultice is taking vegetables, fresh, and beating them up into a mince and then applying it, or taking dried herbs, rehydrating them and beating it into a mince and applying.
Or, okay, wet clay rather than
Yeah.
poultice.
Well, it was wet when I put it on, of course.
Right. And I understood that it has a certain drawing power, and then it almost like gets full, and then you want to replace it. That's what I
Keeps drawing fluids. And as it draws the fluids, it draws the toxic metals and other substances with it. And it will constantly do it. Clay does not have that. Clay is like rock. It can rain every day. It's going to keep absorbing and keep absorbing and keep absorbing. It will reach a point where it absorbs less, but it still continues to absorb as long as it's on.
Is it on the surface of your skin, or did you put it in the wound?
Well, I put it in the wound a little bit. I rubbed it in. Once they took the stitches out, it opened a little bit, and I rubbed it in. Water. Mineral water that had no carbon, because I didn't want the bacteria to be destroyed. Carbonation will destroy bacteria.
And what was that? Trinity or what?
No, I used I used Perrier because that's all I could get in Thailand, and I just shake the carbon out of the bottle.
What about still water? Do you use the still water with it, or still water?
Still water is toxic water. Unless it's rain. When it's not rainwater with high bacteria, that's a different kind of distillation. Do you have a question?
I've had like how these days an acid reflux condition. I've had that for a long time. And about 6 months back, I went to an herbalist, and he put me on a whole food diet, like a lot of fiber. And he recommended that I eat raw foods and gave me lots of supplements. And iodine was one of them that he told me.
Well, that'll make your reflux will never go away if you're taking iodine. Iodine is one of the most caustic minerals there is. It's radioactive, and if you're around a TV or anything, have the radioactivity of that iodine is going to increase.
Selenium.
Those are heavy metals. They're all toxic metals. Plants are made to eat dirt, rock. Plants make food and life out of rock. Rain comes down, dissolves it. The plants absorb it and make it into a live food. Then other animals eat the plants, and then other animals eat the other animals. That's the way it goes. We do not live on dirt. Clay is the only time I supplement it because of our toxicity. But if you're taking mineral supplements and isolated like that, it's very toxic.
It did help with a lot of heartburn.
Well, yeah, those metals will absorb. I mean, those minerals will absorb the acids.
So what caused that acid in the first place? I mean, I know I'm a food diet.
Eating cooked foods that are high in acid, and your body develops the hydrochloric acid, and it gets absorbed into the stomach lining because your mucus doesn't protect it properly. So the hydrochloric acid from your stomach that is produced to dissolve proteins, animal matter, is too acidic, and it gets into the stomach lining and sits in there. And you don't have enough mucus to protect it from backing up into your stomach. And it causes acid reflux. Backs up into your whole esophagus.
So the proper, I mean, I read your book, and I've had a hard time because I have an aversion to meat in the first place because of my ethnic background. And not really believing that meat is something you can eat.
Well, the Dalai Lama believed the Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama felt the same way until he started getting sick a year ago. And one of his best friends is on my diet. Fred Siegel. And Fred Siegel says, listen, I've been on this diet a year. I feel incredible. It's changed my whole life. And he says, yeah, you look so good. You look 15 years younger. And so the Dalai Lama now eats raw meat. And he goes around telling people he eats the meat.
Well, I've been trying to get myself used to it by going to the sushi bar and just having a little bit of meat.
Yeah, that's all.
The beef is a little bit hard to get past. I think recently I tried eating the beef rare just to get me started to eat beef. But
do the best you can, whatever it takes.
Slowly. But what I'm hearing is that vegetables and fruits are not important at all. Basically,
They're harmful.
fruits as well as vegetables.
So if you're on a cooked diet, they're very helpful. But on a raw diet, they're harmful.
So when you're on a primal diet, you're basically eating 100% meat.
No, you're eating meat and dairy, vegetable juices, not whole vegetables, and only food once a day.
You're staying away from the plant. Contrary to what other health professionals have you believe that you should eat.
Well, the health professionals are talking about eating cooked foods. And if you're eating cooked foods, you need that fiber, that pulp that moves things through, plus you need vitamins and enzymes from the vegetables.
So if I'm still trying to acclimate or get used to this process,
Acclimate's a wonderful word.
how do I balance, or if I'm eating cooked and I'm eating raw, my family isn't really.
Well, when you eat cooked, eat the raw with it. Eat some salad with it.
Eat cooked. When I eat cooked, I eat a salad with it. And if I
That's a good balance.
And then I tried for a little while to do it all at one shot. In the morning, I would have like a milkshake. I put the raw milk and the honey and the banana and a raw egg.
Like I said in the recipe book, it's not a good way to start the brain off the sugar. It's sticky in the body, root concentration.
What's the best way to get yourself used to it?
Like I said, get used to it, just do it.
What I had a problem with is I was very gassy.
You what?
Very gassy. If I started drinking a lot of raw milk, I started getting a lot of gas, and I felt my
That's pulling the acids because you've got a lot of acidity in those tissues, and the milk draws it right into the stomach, and that causes the gaseous reaction. That's a good thing because it'll get rid of that's the quickest way to get rid of acid reflux.
So it's okay.
That's wonderful.
Because it was like, it felt like I was swollen from the inside.
Well, then you will. Just try to belch. And get rid of the gas.
And a lot of movement.
But milk and cheese are the best things to absorb the acids from acid reflux.
So that's not a bad thing. To drink
No, that's a
milk
good
and
thing.
have all that movement and all that gas. It's okay.
Yeah, that's the only way you're going to get rid of your acid reflux.
So eventually it'll taper off.
Yeah, I think mine lasted for about 6 years, and then I never had it.
6 years?
Yeah, but take a look at that. You're not living with your whole life. I've gone 6 years, so I've had 35 years without acid reflux. That's pretty good.
Now, can I ask a question for my husband? Because he's
Okay.
ask. He's had a constant back pain recently. He gets like a lump on the right side of his lower back. It's like,
Injury. I had an injury from the shoulder, and you think there's some cure for it.
There is.
There is.
Well, I had my entire spine cauterized from radiation therapy. And this was my movement. That's all I could move. Now I can do anything without pain. And I was in so much pain, I had to crawl on the floor. I had to live in a bathtub because I had so much back pain.
But see, I haven't eaten meat for 22 years.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I've had no poultry, no egg, no fish, nothing for 22 years.
Then why? Then that's one reason you're not healing. So it's up to you. You can heal or you can stay committed to whatever philosophy you have and continue your back pain.
I think the back pain is because of the diet.
Oh, yeah.
But I had an injury.
Doesn't make any difference. Injury just means that You have an injury that continues to hurt, means that you haven't cleaned the dead, bruised tissue out of there, the toxicity out of there, and you haven't healed, put new cells in the area to make it strong. And if you eat properly, you can do it. And the way you can force your body to heal any area is put a hot water bottle in that area while you sleep. People say, well, how about if I take a bath? And I said, well, then you're heating the whole body. If you want to concentrate on an area, you put a hot water bottle in that area. It'll increase circulation, increase nutrients to that area. Heating pad is full of EMS, destructive to the cellular, molecular, cellular structure. It's pretty hot, you know. Usually a good mild, hot water in a bottle is a little bit better.
But it gets cold in an hour, a hot water bottle, or half an hour.
Rapid. And they have these, what do we call it, like buntings, where they bunting they have for babies. They also have them for hot water bottles, or just wrap it in a pillowcase, like a flannel pillowcase. It'll keep for 10, 12 hours.
Oh, really?
Under the covers.
Yeah.
But let's say you're sitting on a couch using it, you have it wrapped, it will keep for about 4 or 5 hours.
So just a mild sufficient to...
Yeah, right. 104, 105 degrees.
Oh, okay. I thought it had to be really warm.
No, then you'll start destroying your enzymes in your own body.
Is your detox book going to stick straight?
Pardon?
Your detox book, is it going to stay strictly with diet, or is it going to get into other things?
Well, it's going to talk about what is pollution, what forms of pollution, including clothing, anything that's synthesized like rayon, dacron, any of those synthesized fabrics, anything that's not cotton, wool, or silk is toxic. It's plastic. And they use solvents or epoxies to put it together. So when those fibers break, and all that lint goes and you breathe it in, you're breathing in plastic. That has to be dissolved in your body. You have BPAs, dioxins, all throughout the system. So I'm going to talk about anything that's toxic, rugs, anything. It's toxic.
Does that go for the Teflon coatings they're putting on no-press garments?
Absolutely.
On what comes?
No point.
No press.
No press.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm blanking.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, I just wanted to say that I'm in the 6th year now. And I was on
6 years on the diet?
On the diet, yeah, I want to say. And I've been on the weight loss, but I didn't have like what Lewis had, where I had a cold on the weight loss at the time. I didn't have a cold now maybe 3 years. I didn't have a cold. But I did get rid of, I had a double chin. I was more healthy out here, getting shrunken. Less fat on the outside of my face.
Yeah, when I met Kathy, her chin was
Like this, like a...
there was no separation.
Wow, and so that didn't just necessarily have to do with weight loss, it had to do somehow with...
Toxicity and her thyroid and all around.
Yeah.
You have to understand, Kathy was catatonic. When she came to me, she was almost in worse shape than Lewis. But this was Kathy when I first met her.
Yeah, I couldn't think.
Could barely think. It was pretty bad.
I couldn't figure out the words. It came to me like a sudden, it's still hard forming out my thoughts. Now I can hold back my anxiety when I'm talking, not interrupt.
I'm getting better every day. Now the question. She had these black, she looked like a raccoon. Black was the blackest I've ever seen.
I don't know.
Liver damage.
Well, I didn't start when I was 30, I started when I was
thing is I sprained my ankle. Now the question comes. Not sprained, I must have gone through tendon. I missed the step and I had this football on this foot. So I wanted to know what is a good remedy for that injury.
Eat a little bit of cheese.
I'm on a weight loss now.
Well, still you want to heal your energy. I mean,
every
your
day.
weight loss. I would do it in the afternoon. I would have a section of cheese, probably 3 inches by a half inch, by whatever thickness the brick of cheese is, with about 2 thumb sizes of unripe pineapple. And
Why unripe?
you want enzymes, you don't want the sugar.
I thought there's less enzymes in unripe fruit.
I don't know why people get that. There's lots of enzymes in fruit. But when it turns into sugar, there's less enzymes and lots of sugar.
So every day you have that at about 2 o'clock.
Yeah. And then have some butter, the cheese, and the
How much butter?
pineapple. I would have about 2 tablespoons.
In addition to having my meal with that?
No.
Oh, you have to wait an hour. Okay. And you don't apply hot water bottles?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you can do that too. And, because you mentioned in your book leaking or something.
Leaks, yeah.
Do that too?
For sprains, when you're in the detox, you want to.
No, that's not right.
If you're a weight loss.
Leak juice?
Yeah.
Leak juice for injuries.
Well, you just put it a little bit like 5% in your juice. 5% of your juice, which means about like a tablespoon per 8 ounces. So that's not much. But on a weight loss cycle, I don't like people to have, intense herbs. You never know what's going to happen. There's not enough blood fat.
So that won't put any excess weight on you when you're in the weight loss with the cheese and the butter. Just at the end, I have to go
Well,
to the
you
end.
need to have a little bit extra to make sure you heal.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to end it with that I was white, had more gray hair than I did when I came, and I'm getting back.
Oh, really? Wow.
And listen to her, she's calm. She's the calmest I've ever heard her.
Now the weight loss too, you're supposed to be more irritated.
Good.
Thank
You're doing very well, Kathy.
So a hot water bottle on the injury right afterwards?
All the time until you start having pain.
So that was going to increase circulation and make more swelling than
Yeah. If that's what you want.
How long should you be on the...
Let me finish this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. When you have more pain initially, let's say you have a headache. When you put the hot water bottles on initially, the brain's going to swell, cause more of a headache for a few minutes. But the heat will get the sinew that binds the fissures in the skull together. It will cause them to relax. So then, within 20 minutes, the skull will expand. When the skull expands, the headache goes away. In an area, you put the hot water bottle on an injured area, it's going to create swelling in the arteries and the muscles, everything around the nerves, cause a little bit more pain. But as soon as all the sinew and all the tendons relax and stretch, there's pain disappears. Then you get all of this intense circulation of nutrients into that area.
But you don't want to exercise anything, no exercise until it go away.
Well, it all depends. When I broke 7 bones in this foot right here, if I was in so much pain that I walked 3 miles that day and bicycled 12 miles the next day, because pain was so intense. So if I stood there and did nothing, or sat there and did nothing, I'd have gone out of my mind, because I don't take painkillers. And I hadn't figured out any pain formulas at that time.
So you don't want to go to the gym when this is happening?
No.
I have a question.
How long should you be on your program when you have a physical problem before you go on the weight loss?
It depends upon the condition. If you have a serious condition, I usually tell people to wait 2 or 3 years. Some people, if they don't gain a lot of weight, let's say I was really skinny and I got to this size, still say don't go on a weight loss until you've been on the diet 6, 7, maybe 8 years before you go on the weight loss. I like people to get fat, really fat, before they go on the weight loss. Like everything, he's putting it on nicely. And, he's at that point where, if you can hold that for 2 months, then you can go on the weight loss. That's the kind of excess weight I like.
I lost 20 pounds on your diet.
Then you're not doing my diet. You're doing my recipe book.
Your recipe book, okay, your recipe book. I know. I lost 20 pounds, and I want to gain some, because I'm down to like almost 155, and I was almost 175, 180.
Yeah, I'm 5'8", and I weigh 180.
Earlier that you felt more tired since you've been on the diet. That happens, doesn't it? When you're first on the diet, your body wants you to sleep more.
It depends upon the person. Some people have lots of energy, and other people need to rest and relax because they've been high adrenaline people all their lives, and their whole body is worn out, exhausted. So the body may be tired for 2 years to get rest. Get rest. But if you can gain the weight, then your body won't be exhausted. And the excess weight allows you to be more powerful. Okay, folks.
I got one question.
Oh, okay.
Does alcohol improve circulation?
The alcoholic industry would love you to believe that. And in cahoots with the pharmaceutical industry, they love you to believe that because it creates brain and nerve damage and liver damage. So if you get sick, you get to go to them. Alcohol in people who are overweight and have congested arteries, yes, it does help because it makes soaps, it helps dissolve toxicity, increase the circulation. If on this diet, it's not a good thing.
Not a good thing. Okay.
But you can get away with it, like I said in the book, like the French do. They eat lots of creams and butter sauces with their meals so they can drink all that alcohol. Alcohol goes into the fat. It's a hell of a way to waste the fat because you're going to make lots of soaps, lots of solvents to detoxify. It's not a balance, but if you want to do it, you can get away with it.
Do you have a new edition of your book?
I'm almost finished with it. I'll be finished with it probably in 2 weeks, and it will probably be out in June.
Is that the first book?
Revision of the first book.
So, Aajonus, the brain damage and liver damage, what else does alcohol do damage?
Oh, it destroys a lot of things, the liver and brain and nervous system, nerve tissue in general.
Are you going to pass out business cards?
No, do you want one? Well, do you have my books?
Yeah.
Okay, all that information is in the recipe book, page 188.